From the Open Season Property Studio, welcome to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because we're the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network. Some of you are listening to SuperTalk Outdoors on supertalk.fm, Amazon Alexa, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, or at SuperTalk TV at C-Spire TV. Or some of you actually watch on YouTube or Facebook or listen on your favorite podcast. Our goal is to be there wherever, whenever you want to engage in the show. And everyone is doing it on so many different platforms. That's the way a multimedia company works these days. Excuse me. Anyways, June the 24th, 2024. Hey, listen, it's been kind of warm on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but boy, it's been beautiful. The weather has been absolutely insanely beautiful. Slick seas, just beautiful situation. And my big boat that we would be going offshore, we hit something with it about a month and a half ago and had to have one of the lower units replaced. It'll be ready tomorrow, thank goodness, but we've missed out on a lot of this offshore fishing. But I saw where my friend Elmer PK and Chase PK went 3 for 3 on swordfish this past weekend. 3 for 3. Man, that's got to be awesome, especially on a beautiful blue sky day with no rough seas and catching some swordfish. That's pretty awesome. Congratulations to my friends, that's for sure. Jordan went out yesterday. He went running around, and we have a bay boat also, and he went to look for blackfish, triple tail, and that's a pretty popular form of fishing these days. But he caught one just underneath the legal limit, but he sent me a picture while he was fighting, and it's fun. Those are great. First of all, they're good eating fish, but they also fight amazingly good. My wife Ann and I took the grandkids fishing. I think it was Friday afternoon, and man, we caught a croaker on just about every throw. You know, that's what you do when you got grandkids. You take them out and catch croakers and stuff like that, and what fun that is. But you know, so lucky to live in coastal Mississippi. We're so lucky to live in Mississippi. So much amazing things to do this time of year. I've been noticing some of my friends on Facebook and other social media have been posting pictures of, you know, their summer plots are coming up, and you know they're going to feed the deer through the summer, and then of course we're not far away from starting to get ready to open up our roads and start turning some soil and get ready to plant some food plots. I mean, it's amazing how quickly time is flying. So anyway, without any further ado, let's go ahead and shift gears and move over to my friend Lake Pickle. I'm always thrilled when he joins us. He's with Open Season Properties on X. As I've reported a couple of weeks ago, he's got great news about the Primos podcast, and we're gonna bring you up to date on all that stuff. But anyway, how you doing, Lake?
Man, I'm fantastic. I'm always happy to spend a Monday morning talking to you.
Hey, listen, you and your wife, I saw some pictures on social media. You guys were out in Montana. Man, you're lucky.
Man, it's beautiful up there this time of year. One of the biggest pros, I guess, in going to work for OnX is their headquarters is right there in Missoula, Montana. And so I was up there for 4 or 5 days working, and then Lacey flew up right at the tail end of it. And we spent a week up there with some friends of ours that live up there. And yeah, we went hiking at Glacier. We went and flew over the Bob Marshall Wilderness. We went fly fishing. We went river floating. We just experienced all of it that we could.
Yeah, we're headed to Idaho, and we're going to spend time in Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming while we're there. I look forward to it. You know, it's going to be like 40 in the morning, and the high this morning in coastal Mississippi was 82, and that's the high the whole time we're going to be up there, 82. Yeah. And speaking of Glacier, incidentally, when the kids were growing up, we used to spend every year we would go to a different national park. So we've been to most of them. And Glacier was if you had to put the list, Yellowstone probably was number one. Glacier was probably number two. What I was amazed about Glacier National Park was how big it was, how expansive it is. I mean, it is one huge national park, and you don't have a lot of people there. You know, the one thing that it has over Yellowstone is the traffic is manageable. Yellowstone's super popular, so a lot of traffic, but did you get a chance to kind of drive around and feel that expansiveness of it?
We did, and I had never been there before. Lacey had been there years prior, and it's been a good bit of time there. So I had never really, honestly, I had not hit a lot of national parks. I had always, and being in just kind of being naive, I had told Lacey, I was like, I always figured I'd saw all that stuff hunting anyway. I didn't need to go to a national park, which I realized now was a pretty naive answer, because seeing, I was like, that is very impressive. The other thing that's cool about it too, and you alluded to it, and what y'all used to do taking your kids up there, is that they make it to where you can see that raw, beautiful wilderness, but they make it really accessible to families and kids, where you don't have to go, hike however many miles in the backcountry to see it. So that, I mean, it was really cool. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, we rented a house in Whitefish and went from there. What a cool little town that is. I actually have a friend of mine's, my hunting son, Jake Carter's sister, Alexa, lives in Whitefish. So she picked a really cool place to live. That is definitely for sure. Hey, listen, I mentioned it on the show. I know there's a story coming out on SuperTalk, Mississippi News soon, as it relates to it. But man, congratulations, because this is really the first time I've had you on the show since you acquired the Premost podcast. I'm excited for you,
man. Thank you. It was, I mean, like anything else that I've had that I would consider success in my life, I say I'm like a turtle on top of a fence post. I didn't get there without help. So taking advice from people like Wilbur, taking advice from folks like you helped me a lot on that. You're a modest guy, but you helped me a lot, on advice there, and I can't thank you enough for it. But yeah, Jordan and I are pumped to have that show back and ready to get it back rolling, and we'll have it rolling back really soon.
And so Premost is going to be still associated with it?
Yeah, so Premost is the title sponsor of the show. That was the deal that we were able to work out. I mean, we own the show now, but Premost was such a big part of mine and Jordan's life. It only made sense for them to continue to be a part of it, and they were excited to be a part of it. So it was just kind of a natural fit, and I'm thrilled with how it worked out.
When you think about, I mean, you can kind of update us on the numbers, but you guys kind of built that from nothing to something very significant. How many downloads have you guys had?
We're about 2.5 million, and that it kind of, and that's going off of, because when all this stuff happened, we kind of fumbled the ball there, didn't know what to do with it, all this kind of weird space. We didn't know where the show was. That's kind of where we left it off at. But you're right. When we started it, I had zero idea what I was doing. So it just kind of became what it was.
Yeah, I'm really excited for y'all, because you're a terrific voice. And again, just like your time on Premost, just like your work with OnX, the opportunity to be an ambassador to the rest of the nation through that podcast is incredible, because it's not just a Mississippi-centric podcast. It's a national podcast. So I'm assuming you guys are already brainstorming to figure out how to make the diverse outdoors that you'll be focused on sort of the center of attention. But it's got to be super exciting.
Man, I tell you, because especially since I found out I was getting it back, Jordan and I have been constantly, like, we've got a list together, we've got a plan. But just on this trip to Montana, I had someone run into me in the airport and stop me, and was talking about Premost, and they said, "Man, love the podcast." And it was just kind of a nice little encouragement that I was like, "Hey, we got it back. It's coming back." So I mean, just I can't even begin to state how truly excited I am about, and Jordan is too. We're pumped, truly.
So it's really neat. I mean, it's really neat. So the podcast OnX, your time as kind of marketing and social media for OnX, and your work at Open Season Properties, they kind of peacefully, wonderfully coexist, don't they?
They do. It just kind of, one of those things where just thank the Lord for it every day. And sometimes I look at it like when Lacey and I have kind of this sentence we say back and forth to each other when we get ourselves in just kind of a situation that's just awesome. Like when we were in Glacier, or when I was telling you about our friend's house that we were staying at, and we woke up and could look out in that meadow and see all those elk, I would just look over and say, "Man, what a life." Because I mean, I couldn't have orchestrated all those things to just kind of work together with one another, but I sure am thankful for it.
It is super cool. So you said you did some fly fishing. Did you catch anything?
I am terrible at fly fishing. I figured out. I I figured out how to cast. I figured out how to cast and mend quicker than I thought I would, and so that gave me this like false sense of confidence. I was like, oh, I've got this, and I'm 10 and 2. But when it came to actually catching the fish, I could not put that piece together.
Well, one thing's for sure, you need to bring a lot of flies because you'll lose some fly fishing in places like Montana and Wyoming. I can't wait to wet a fly myself. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Lake Pickle, and we'll just talk about summer activities, what's happening here. We'll talk about some safety rules that were discussed at last week's commission meeting, and there's much more. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors from the Open Season Properties Studio. Listen, Open Season Properties is a full-service real estate company with a team approach philosophy that ensures your needs are the highest priority, whether it's rural land sales, residential, or commercial properties. Open Season Properties markets and sells real estate in Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. And they're dedicated to the development of long-term client relationships and unwavering commitment to service. Go to openseasonproperties.com to learn more. We're thrilled to have them as a sponsor of this show. And we're chatting with my friend Lake Pickle, who actually works with Open Season on X and also has the Primos podcast. We're excited about that. So, hey, how's business and how's the Open Seasons work going these days?
Man, things are great. Things are growing. I've talked to Jordan and Austin and Hunter and guys like that all the time that work there. I mean, yeah, things are really, really going great. It's cool because, being able to come a part of this company when I did, it's just cool to see it grow and watch those guys do what they do. And like Jordan has really taken off with it. Like I've watched him, kind of push the bowling ball up the hill, and now he's really getting some momentum, and it's been really great to see. Proud of him.
What's exciting about what you guys have done? I mean, you come, as we pointed out, you do multiple states and different kinds of real estate. But when it comes to hunting land, the opportunity you guys have to work with landowners to maximize the land, that's something y'all enjoy, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, it's getting to do kind of the fun part of, you talk about your place that y'all hunt in the Delta all the time and how fun it is to, working on food plots and, just kind of tweaking on this part and figuring this part out. And these are, we know these deer bed here, and, just kind of helping somebody else figure out their place or design their place. It's a lot of fun.
I know it is. Hey, listen, as you guys at OnX do what you do, OnX has kind of found a pretty powerful niche, haven't they?
Yeah, they really have. And talk about, I was a customer of OnX 5 years before I went to work for them, and was already just was very well aware of how powerful of a asset it was to have with you, whether you're hunting or you're a forester, you're doing real estate, or that's the other thing too, is like we run into people all the time, and the sentence we get is, we use it for hunting, but we also use it for blank, and they tell us some other, off the wall reason how they're using the app, which we obviously love to hear.
So you got, one of the things I've noticed is it through Open Seasons or through OnX that you're beginning to get into developing more content, whether it be video content or whatever. What's going on in that area?
So that's more, the Open Season is definitely doing it as well. The most of it that I do, that's for on the OnX side. And so we do a lot. You can imagine, at the end of the day, OnX is a app, and it's also, a map, a map, you can do a lot of the same things on the app. You can do like e-scouting on the laptop and everything, but we're a tech company, so with tech comes a lot of how does this work? How does that work? And so we work a lot on just a lot of general education on not just how to use whatever new feature we have generally, but we try to teach how to use it in very specific hunting settings. And then we just try to show it being applied out in the field. Like Jordan and I filmed some turkey hunting content for OnX this past spring. We filmed a lot of upland bird stuff last fall. We filmed some waterfowl stuff. for showing how the app works in the field, and then just honestly just a lot of entertainment value for our YouTube channel. Because if someone goes to the Onyx YouTube channel, sure, they want to watch a tutorial on how to use a certain feature, but they might also want to watch a duck hunt or a pronghorn hunt or an elk hunt. Who knows?
Well, your time behind the camera at Primos and your time in front of the camera, it taught you a valuable set of skills, didn't it?
Man, again, like one of those things, couldn't have orchestrated it, but I mean, I knew when I started at Primos that these were skills that I needed, but I didn't have, I couldn't see into the future to see that it's something I'd still be using even after I wasn't, a videographer at Primos anymore. But it's one of the most valuable tools I have in my arsenal is being able to video and photo and all of that.
Well, look, we'll switch gears and move over to, they had a commission meeting last week. It's great to watch a commission meeting that goes smoothly, where there's not a lot of noise, and we're not looking back. We're not focused on that. What I think the one thing we want to learn from in terms of the last 2 or 3 years is that we want to take what we learned and make sure we don't make those mistakes again. I think that's what I think the general public wants to know. I think one of the things we've been doing through this show is to bring more attention to the commission and to help people really understand that too often their work is out of sight, out of mind. There's these safety regulations that they pull back on. We'll talk about that in just a second, where they're aligning the WMA safety rules with what's happening on the Forest Service. And again, we'll come back to that here in just a second. But what we're wanting to do is just bring more light to the proceedings of the commission so that people can be more aware. And, focusing on, what I would refer to as best practices on the commission, people like Billy Munger, and get more people like Billy Munger. So now Bill Coster, who was the chairman, he cycles off. They did a nice tribute to him at the last meeting. He had been active in the community in so many different ways over many years. And while I didn't always agree with some of the actions that he took, he was a terrific public servant and was honored in that way. But now we have that opening. So we have the seat that was vacated as a result of the lack of confirmation for Leonard Bentz. And then we've got another seat now for the position that Bill Coster vacates. So 2 open positions, man. And I've been hearing some names floating around. In fact, I've reached out to a couple of people to talk to them about a few things I've heard, in some respects, maybe some concerns that I have. Not working at all to burn bridges at all, really just to chat and let them hear the buzz that's out there. And where does the buzz come from? The buzz comes from a bunch of different spots, actually. It comes from leaders in the conservation community that may know some of the names that are being considered. It comes from former employees of the department who may have encountered some of these folks at some point. It comes from employees inside the department. So it's a wide range of folks that may hear about a name, and then they'll say, have you heard about this name? And they'll send me a note, and I'll say, no, I haven't heard that name. Heard that person's being strongly considered, or maybe somebody else wants to be considered. And what I've come to understand, that if you don't have a relationship with Tate Reeves, somebody that Tate knows and understands, probably your name's not going to get in the hat. You're not going to come out of. They're not just going to take somebody from out there and just bring them in if they don't know them. So I've had some conversations with some folks that I think are at least under consideration, but I think we're going to learn pretty quickly because we've got 2 openings. And my sense is it'll be like when Leonard and Gary Rose were appointed. You'll probably see 2 people appointed at the same time. My guess, probably before the next meeting, and then they won't be confirmed until the next legislative session. So you're talking about 6 months, or more, that they will be serving before they get confirmed. Excuse me, had a little frog in my throat. But so the reality is, if there's any baggage, it's going to come up. It'll come up in the next 6 months, and it will be considered during, I guess, the confirmation hearings. And I just hope that we don't have any commissioners with baggage. That's what I want. I mean, there's too many really, really dedicated conservation leaders and outdoorsmen in this state who the Tate Reeves administration knows who don't have baggage. they come to the table and they care deeply about the outdoors in Mississippi, and they're very successful people. They would be great. They would be really good commissioners on the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission. So we'll see. We'll see. Are you hearing anything yourself, Lake?
I want to know if Governor Reeves ever called Wilbur. That's what I want to know. I think the thing that we have going for us is what we've learned. Over these past few months is something you said yourself. We've learned how powerful sunshine is. And so moving forward, I mean, I would just hope that they know that there are people watching this and that they would take their decisions on who they're trying to get on this commission very, very seriously, because I think it's safe to say that there's more people now than before that are watching it, that are very aware of what we have, that the power this commission has, the power of that role, and they're aware of it. And that alone is powerful, I think.
I think so. I think you're right about that. We'll pick it up from there when we get back on the other side and see if there's anything else we want to chat as it relates to the commission getting back to full strength, filling these two positions that are now open on the commission. When we continue our conversation with Lake Pickle on the other side, we'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors from the open season studio. Hey, listen, if you're looking to purchase the perfect piece of hunting property, upgrade your farm equipment, or have you been dreaming of owning your slice of heaven out in the country, look no further than Mississippi Land Bank for your financing needs. For more than 100 years, farming families and landowners in North Mississippi have turned to Mississippi Land Bank for all kinds of financial solutions, whether it's for land, equipment, or livestock. For more information, visit MississippiLandBank.com and go by and see one of the friendly staff at any of their offices. And as I've mentioned before, Mississippi Land Bank has actually helped my friends buy a wonderful piece of ground adjacent to some land that I lease up in the Mississippi Delta, and they were great to work with. So Mississippi Land Bank, thrilled to have them as a sponsor. Now let's get back to Lake Pickle. And we'll just kind of continue where we left off. I wanted to mention to you that I've had some terrific conversations with Commissioner Scott Coopwood recently, and he's the incoming chairman, so he'll be chairman at the next meeting. And also, I should point out that it was just announced that he's buying the Mississippi Business Journal. So he has the Delta Business Journal, he has Delta Magazine, he has a newspaper, he has a bunch of newsletters, but he also has now Mississippi Business Journal. So I'm excited for Scott. I think, some potential collaboration that could exist between the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks and the Mississippi Business Journal. It'd be interesting to watch that unfold. But Scott really understands what needs to happen, and he's super motivated. He's looking forward to going in and rolling up his sleeves. And I like what he's saying. I think he knows that the commission faces some tough decisions as it relates to chronic wasting disease, and I sense that he gets that completely. And let's hope that the two new commissioners they bring on also of the same sort of point of view. And that I'm looking forward to Gary Rhodes. I think Gary Rhodes has learned a lot. Since, my sense is he may be wanting to be in for the long haul. I think he's a serious guy. He's the mayor of Flowood, and I've heard good things about his leadership. I think he with Scott and with Billy Munger and two new commissioners, let's hope to God the governor focuses on bringing people in that don't have baggage, that can come in and really hit the ground running and help us move our state forward. We don't have time for any more noise on this commission, because they really do. They've got some tough issues to face, don't they, Lake?
Extremely. I mean, you alluded to some of them, but yeah, I mean, not only is just the commission itself a very powerful, very, very powerful thing, but where we're at right now and the certain things that we're looking at in the face. Like, it's not like the problems that we have or the things it's not like they're far in the future. Like CWD, it's right here. Like it's staring at us in the eyes. And So yeah, it's paramount that we have people on there that can make the right decisions.
I would encourage you that if you did not see or hear our show about chronic wasting disease, when I had William McKinley and Bronson Strickland from the Deer Lab at Mississippi State go look it up on YouTube, or go to the SuperTalk Outdoors Facebook page and find it. Just do a search on it and find it. I think you'll be glad that you did, because I think we did a good job of covering sort of what the current situation is as it relates to that. And then in Mississippi, we've got at least 2 enclosures now that have CWD inside them. And that, there's some tough decisions the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks is going to face around that. All we can do, there's no cure. All we can do is hope to slow it down. And by the way, the best practices that are emerging around the United States today, there are terrific best practices that if we implement those best practices, we will be able to slow it down, and hope to goodness that the science catches up. But if we don't implement those best practices, chronic wasting disease is going to just slowly but surely march through Mississippi. And what we see in places like Benton County, where the prevalence in Benton County is already, as the experts say, already to the point of no return, unfortunately. There are certain parts of Benton County, Mississippi, you don't see any mature deer anymore at all, zero. That is, we don't want to see that in the rest of Mississippi. So we've got to put some things in place that will slow it down, and that's the goal. And hopefully they'll do that, Lake.
I sure hope so. In some instances, we as just humans in general can have a habit of waiting for things to get really bad before we spring into action. In my opinion, things have already gotten plenty bad enough that we can't tread water on this. You really can't. Tough decisions on some of this, sure, I agree. But at the same point, I think the right path is pretty visible. Not negating that they're tough, but we still know what we have to do.
See, listen, in the last meeting, back in December 2022, Shannon Clardy had a not so pleasant meeting at the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission meeting. I'm not going to retrace any of those steps, but essentially she was wanting to put in place and had put in place some new safety regulations on U.S. forest land. And so there's been some work since then that actually culminated in last week's meeting. Now, I sent a note to Lynn Posey, the executive director, and I haven't gotten a response from him yet, but it's not clear to me sort of what the next steps are. But essentially what they were doing is trying to put into place with some new rules that would give the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks officers the ability to do enforcement on U.S. forest land. And so they got a lot of feedback. I think Hunter Cloud from the Daily Leader has done a good job of covering the commission meeting. So I'll just kind of hum a few bars from a story that he wrote. But here's what he wrote. Commissioners approved the removal of references to U.S. Forest Service lands and public use areas and a proposed rule for basic regulations for the wildlife management areas Wednesday. In short, the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks would not be able to enforce safety rules contained in Rule 1.1 on open federal land. There's some concern about state officers enforcing on federal land, essentially is what he's saying. Commissioners additionally voted to delete Section E from 1.1, which would have caused anyone convicted of a regulation violation on WMAs to lose their hunting or fishing privileges for 1 year. The reason given was that the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks has the ability to do so in Mississippi Code already. So that's what that is. So in this effort to align, they said they got a lot of public comments. I think you'll see Lynn Posey said 224 comments. I think a lot of them came from dog hunters. I think part of the issue here is to try to put some rules in place that are in place at the WMAs that would enable the Forest Service to manage what they see as a safety concern related to how some dog hunters go about doing their work. A woman, her name is Liz Swoop from Baton Rouge, who is a member of a hunting camp over in Franklin County. Said that he said her face, this is what Hunter wrote, her face reflected feelings of frustration and disappointment as she spoke. We think we deserve the same safety protections as the WMA users have, Swope said. Those rules protect people who live in the forest, those who have camps in the forest. It protects the hunters and people who do all other types of recreation and people who travel in the forest. So my sense is it's not over, that there's something going on. Don't know what the next steps are. Don't know what all the issues are. So we'll look forward to hearing from Shannon Collardi, who's the Forest Service supervisor for Mississippi. It's over 1 million acres of land, incidentally. This is actually a really big deal. And I'll wait to hear from Lynn Posey, the executive director of the department, and also the lawyers to try to understand what the next steps are. Because at the end of the day, I think most people agree that safety procedures are a good idea. And if what they're trying to put in place is what's already in place at WMAs, they just need some enforcement help. Why not enable that? So, what are you hearing anything about this lake?
I mean, I've seen a couple articles come out about it. I've obviously, because of the subject matter, you've seen some things floating around on social media, Facebook in particular. And it's one of those things, if you're in one of the groups of people that are being directly affected by it, there's kind of a no in between. People are either very against it or very, opposed to it. And so kind of like you said, it's one of those things where we have to find a way to get everybody on the same page. And with that comes just full disclosure and getting everyone involved, which, it's just kind of an odd deal there.
Hey, listen, one of the things that was discussed at the meeting, someone who was involved in the fox hunt up at Grenada Lake.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the story, just do a search, put in the search box, just put 38 dogs rescued and you will see stories from all across the country. We posted the initial story, and then we posted a segment actually from the meeting so you could see it for yourself, where the guy who was involved in the fox hunt was sort of giving the commissioners a heads up that you're gonna read more about this. But apparently they went into the Grenada Lake. They went like a mile offshore, chasing during the fox hunt. They got onto a deer and then followed the deer into the lake. Now the deer arced back and got out of the water, but the dogs were kind of left stranded in the middle of this lake. And there was someone out there fishing who apparently has some dog hunting experience, and he loaded up the dogs and saved them. And this is a national story. We'll finish the rest of that story with Lake Pickle after this break. Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors from the Open Season Property Studio. In a world where honesty and dependability are rare, Austin Seals and Jordan Blissett at Open Season Properties stand out with their commitment to integrity and hard work. With a background in agriculture, science, marketing, and hunting land development, this team offers a real service that you can rely on when buying or selling real estate. Whether it's your family property or your first piece of ground, they understand the significance of every transaction, specializing in recreational land, poultry farms, investment properties, farm and timberlands, and more. They are here to meet all your real estate needs. Give Austin Seals and Jordan Blissett at Open Season Properties a call and experience the difference. We're chatting with Lake Pickle now, and when we went to break, we're talking about these 38 dogs that were rescued in Grenada Lake. And I just met Huffington Post did a story about it. Fox News, Outdoor Life, the Independent, and the United Kingdom, and the list goes on from there. But it's literally an international story. I guess it's just one of the things that can happen when you're running dogs.
Yeah, especially it's one of those things, like the incident itself is one of those things that can happen, but then in the world we live in and just how fast information travels. The first time I saw that story was on a place that I did not expect to see. I mean, I saw a picture of the dogs on the boat, and I'm like, oh, what's that? And then I read it. I'm like, Mississippi. What? I mean, it was this. It was an account called like Tank's Good News. I mean, it was just. But I was like, wait, what? And then I went and saw it at some of our other local outlets. But yeah, I mean, that thing went everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, the virality of it. 38 dogs, a guy saving them, but it was wild how quick it spread.
Yeah, it spread. And, I think that this David, it's interesting. The guy's name is David, who spoke at the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks and Commission meeting last week. Usually they're supposed to say their first and last name and where they're from. But apparently Bill Koster knew him and said, okay, we'll hear from you, David. And we didn't get those details. So I don't know what his last name is. I'm not trying to short him. I thought it was terrific that he gave them a heads up that this could be an issue. One of the things I did yesterday, I went in and just did a little survey, anecdotal, of course, but I looked at the comment sections from multiple publications that had the story. I looked on social media, what people were saying. And overwhelmingly, the stories were about the dogs and saving the dogs. It rarely did it turn into a discussion of anti-hunting. And some of that was there, but it wasn't there to the severity that I thought it might be there, just because it was this international story. People were curious about why someone would spray paint a number on the back of a dog, which is part of the practice for fox hunting. And they accused the dog hunters of not caring about their dogs. But, we know people who dog hunt and they care deeply about their dogs. At least most of them do, for sure. So, but it wasn't, it didn't, for the most part, it did not turn into an anti-hunting kind of opportunity. The focus was mostly on the dogs. And for that, I think we're lucky because, given how widespread this story was, it could have gone negative pretty quickly.
Yeah, I saw pretty much what you saw, especially on some of the more, out there channels where I wasn't really expecting to see it. Saw more of the anti-hunting jargon, but not a lot. Definitely more focused on the dogs. It's tricky because, we've alluded to before, dog hunters like that, I know about them, you know about them. I don't run those kind of dogs, but being a dog owner myself that hunts with it, knocks at, mostly waterfowl and upland birds, you have a respect for anybody that has a working dog. And so I have an understanding as well as you about how deeply and how much care and time and investment goes into those dogs. But from a non-understanding party, you can understand where the questions come from. And so it's what can we do better to kind of alleviate some of that? Because it's one of those things. It's like you don't know unless you know, or you're not in the community. But yeah, that should be something that the dog hunting community takes on. I think, in my opinion, it's like is what can they do better to really get across if something like this happens again, that they can get across that it was not due to negligence or not due to lack of care for the dogs.
Yeah, I think those are great points, actually. I had a terrific conversation about dog hunting with our friend Ramsey Russell on his It's Duck Season Somewhere podcast. By the way, if you haven't downloaded that podcast or gone to listen to it, Ramsey is really good, man. I mean, he's been all over the world, but I just like the way he expresses himself. And you've been on it before too, but man, Ramsey does a great job with that, doesn't he?
He does fantastic. It's funny because, both of us being from Mississippi, I'm aware, especially when I was in Montana a few days ago, everywhere I went, someone would go, "You're not from here." What, that accent is Southern. So we all have accents, but even I, being from here, listen to Ramsey and I'm like, man, that guy's got an accent. And so the funniest things, I was talking to some of my buddies from Onyx and they said, man, when I first started listening to that podcast, I was surprised because Ramsey is sharp, man. He does.
He's so smart.
He's articulate, but yeah, he does great with that show.
He does a great job. Anyway, we had a really good discussion about it. We get dog hunting, that's for sure. So I think some of the bad apples sometimes give it a bad name. They should do a better job of sort of policing the bad apples. But anyway, that's all the time we had today, Lake Pickle. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend.
And thank you always for having me on. It's always a pleasure. I always enjoy the conversation.
You bet. This has been Lake Pickle. Listen, have a great day. Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday. And as I always end the show, stay safe when you're in the outdoors. Always put safety first. God bless you.